All right, the next method that I want to talk about is the HIGH5 method, and this one is one that people are not as familiar with, and it has 5 steps. That's why it's called the HIGH5 method. And by the way, before we move on, I don't think I told you this at the beginning. If I did, I'm sorry for repeating it. But all of the background images for this PowerPoint come from Kentucky State Parks. I just wanted to sort of display the beauty that our state parks have to offer. So if you do not travel to state parks or do not visit them, consider doing it because they are great. So HIGH5. There are 5 steps to the HIGH5 strategy. The first one is to activate your background knowledge. So always connect what you are reading to your prior knowledge or the knowledge you have from previous experience or formal learning. Making connections between what you already know and what you are reading helps you to remember and understand the text better. When you have a text to read in front of you, first look at the title and headings, make a note, either written or mental, of information that you already know about the subject. So, and we've had researchers and people who study the brain, I guess neuroscientists, who say that not just sort of in our conscious, but physically, when you learn something new and your brain is physically affected by it, the ridges or the wrinkles or whatever you want to call it in your brain, they are more permanent and they are deeper than if you connect something that you're learning new to what you already know than if you just take that new piece of information. So the more you can relate what you're learning to what you already know, the better. And if, let's say, you don't have prior knowledge about a certain subject, that may be the case. You might do just a quick Google search to find some basic information. You might look at Wikipedia. Wikipedia is actually added to or maintained by people who are very knowledgeable about the subjects that they oversee on Wikipedia. So Wikipedia is a place to get good information, good general information. Wikipedia is not something we usually use when we research because it's more general information, and encyclopedias are not used during research, but they're a great place to activate background knowledge. They're a great place to find some general information about things, and they're a great encyclopedias, and Wikipedia in particular is a great place to just explore. But remember, anytime that you can make a connection between something you already know and something that you're learning, that's better. That means you're more likely to remember it, you're more likely to comprehend it, and it's more likely to become part of just your knowledge base. The next thing you can do is question, and this is also the second step of the SQ3R method. So when you question, you generate questions before and during reading in this method, and good readers continually ask and answer questions as they work through a text. There are 3 types of questions you can ask according to the HIGH5 method. And the first type of questions are right there questions, questions that have factual answers found right there in the text. They make sure you have a basic understanding of what you are reading. They also help you to know the facts. So these might be those surface questions that we talked about with the SQ3R method. So it is okay if you ask them, but make sure they're not the only type of questions that you ask. So an example of a right there question, if you're reading about cells and biology, might be, what are the 3 main regions all cells have? That's very easy. You can look in the text and find it pretty quickly. Write those 3 down. We also have think and search questions, And these are questions that help you analyze what you have read. To answer these questions, you may need to make inferences and combine ideas. They help you determine what the text wants you to figure out about the facts. So, for example, you might say, how are animal and plant cells similar? So, in a biology textbook, usually what you have is a section on animal cells, a section on plant cells. So, what you can do is read those and then compare the two sections, see what's the same in each cell, see what's different. So, there you're actually still reading in the text, but you are making connections, you're analyzing what you've read, you're making inferences, you're combining information from two different parts of the text to come up with an answer. It's a best practice. And then finally, we have beyond the text questions. And these are questions that are assumptive and critical. They extend beyond the text. They help you figure out what is not being said or what you want to know more about. So, for example, a beyond the text question might be, are there any parts of the cell it could do without? What tools are needed to study the cell? Why is the study of cells so important? What is the current approach to studying the cell? How does knowing about the cell help medical professionals? So these are all things that require deeper thinking, and then also some of them may not even be answered in the text. You may have to go outside of the text to answer those, or you may just think about the answers to these. Uh-oh. So the next thing that you want to do is analyze the text structure. So determine how the writer has organized information in the text. If the writer is using a descriptive structure, the focus will be on explaining the characteristics and qualities of a subject. The writer may list a subject's characteristics and explain them, or compare and contrast two or more subjects. If the writer is using a sequential structure, the information will be presented as a series of events. First this happened, then this, or steps. First you do this, then you do this. And the writer may suggest a cause and effect relationship between events or present a problem and then provide the solution. So all of those various paragraphs that we're writing this semester are all practicing different text structures. So use that information from our writing side of this course to help you identify text structures in other texts. And one way you can do that is by looking at transitions. And I think in every single guide to writing one of the different text structures, I've included a section on what transitions to use to indicate meaning with each structure. So here's an example. The subheadings in an article about the uses of water may be a series of dates. So, for example, starting 5,000 years ago when the water was collected on the Nile River, to 2,000 years ago when Romans used aqueducts to collect and transport water, and so on. These subheadings immediately suggest a sequence structure involving time. So, the fourth step in the high five strategy is to create mental images. And this is an important step because as human beings, we are visual creatures. We often understand pictures before we understand written text. I mean, kids do understand pictures and images before they understand words. So use this to help you remember and comprehend what you read. If you're reading fiction, try to form a picture of the setting and the characters in your mind. If a character is described, for example, try to fully picture that character before you move on with the text. You may even want to actually pull pencil and paper out and do some drawing, perhaps. It is equally important for you to visualize as you are reading nonfiction. Form a picture in your mind of a map of the United States in the early 1800s, or visualize or draw the life cycle of a certain insect. Often informative texts, such as your course textbooks, will provide images and diagrams to help you as you form these mental images. It's also important to visualize the structure of a text. For example, picture the events in a process you are reading about as a list of steps in your mind. And finally, the last step of the high five strategy is to summarize. This is the same as the review step for SQ3R. When you summarize, you review the main points of a text. It's a good idea here to make a diagram of the text structure you visualized in the previous step through an outline, a web diagram, flowchart, etc. Identify key terms and ideas and narrow what you have read down to its most important concepts. According to Block and Presley, when you summarize, you delete irrelevant details, combine similar ideas, condense main ideas, and connect major themes into concise statements that capture the purpose of a reading. And after you've gone through all the steps of the high five technique, it's a good idea to actually write a brief summary of the text. That way you will have it to study by later. Now, a KWL chart, which I'm sure that you've seen before, can help you implement the high five strategy. And I will include for you in Blackboard a KWL chart that you can print off as many times as you want as you are reading. Use the K section, the what I know section. Basically, a KWL chart, before we move on, is a chart where you list what you know, what you want to know, and then after you have read, you write what you've learned. So you can use the K section to record prior knowledge. You can use the W section to pose those questions. And you can use the L section to summarize. So these are the references that I used during this presentation. I hope you found this helpful, and